What's going on, Godzirra Nation? This is Arghgodzirra. Welcome back to another installment of Arghgodzirra'S footy tipping competition. We are looking ahead to round 17 action. Thank you for joining me as always. The competition is really starting to heat up. We've only got about 6 or 7 weeks to go until the home and away season is finished. A lot of teams are still pressing for that final spot, with a few teams fighting to maintain their final spots. There's a lot on the line for a lot of teams. The leaderboard for the tipping has been updated. Be sure to check the description down below to see where everyone is sitting heading into this weekend, because some places were made up in a big way last week. However, let's not dwell on last week. Let's look forward to the week that will be, and that kicks off with West Coast hosting Collingwood at Optus Stadium. Now, with Collingwood's form slipping, there's no denying that it hasn't, ladies and gentlemen, so don't even try to argue that fact. You've got to comfortably back the reigning premiers to defend Optus Stadium and come home with a win here, and I am going to be selecting West Coast to get the job done. Collingwood, I think, will be competitive, but I think West Coast are just a class above and will finish off a bit stronger than Collingwood. So to kick things off for round 17, I am locking in the West Coast Eagles. The first game on Saturday is at the SCG, with Sydney hosting Carlton. Carlton were valiant in a close game against Melbourne last week, and let's be honest, Carlton fans, it's a game that you should have realistically won, in my opinion. I was actually a bit disappointed that you guys didn't. However, with no indication of when Patrick Cripps is going to be coming back into the lineup, and travelling to the SCG against a Sydney outfit who's starting to find form despite losing last week, I'm going to back Sydney. I think Carlton can be competitive here, and if they are, I think they'll get a huge tick next to their name. I just feel Sydney, they're starting to get the ball rolling. They're a little bit behind the other teams that are looking to finish in a finals position this year, but never say never. We have seen stranger things happen, and Sydney, by all means, are still well within touch of being able to make that finals position. So Sydney for me to kick off Saturday afternoon. Hawthorn are playing another home game down in Tasmania, and the Fremantle Dockers are making the trip down to try and get their season back on track after an extremely lacklustre effort against West Coast last weekend. However, I think Fremantle fans are going to be disappointed 2 weeks in a row, because I don't think it's going to do them any good getting that travel down here, because Hawthorn for me are going to get the job done quite comfortably. Fremantle last week were absolutely deplorable in front of goal. So many missed opportunities. Only 1 or 2 players were continuously pushing all game. You could just see how flat they were running. They're going to look to bounce back, but I think Hawthorn is a much more quality outfit, and they're going to get the job done on Saturday. Marvel Stadium sees Essendon taking on North Melbourne. 2 clubs still fighting to keep their 2019 finals chances well and truly alive. They're both coming off of wins last weekend, and this is a contest that I feel is a true 50-50 coin toss. It really is. Could go either way. However, going off of what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, I'm going to tip North Melbourne to get up here, especially with Essendon skipper Dyson Heppell still in doubt about his return from injury. And you just weigh up the pros and cons of what both teams have dished up so far. I think North Melbourne have been playing the better brand of football, and I think that's going to get them over the line. It could go either way. Every time I say that, the other team gets up. I said last week, with the Port Adelaide game, I made the mistake last time of not tipping Adelaide, so I tipped Adelaide and said it's a 50-50 game and Port Adelaide could get up, and they ended up rolling Adelaide. So that being said, now that I've tipped North Melbourne, Essendon's going to get up and win, mark my words. However, that's still not going to change my tip. I'm comfortably backing North Melbourne to get the job done against Essendon and push for a final spot in 2019. Metricon Stadium last weekend saw an absolutely demoralising loss for the Gold Coast against Richmond, and this week could be no different with the Gold Coast hosting Adelaide. Things are going to get very ugly this weekend. I can see it happening. Adelaide here, I think, are going to win by 10 plus goals quite easily, and if they don't, there's something wrong, because they've got the team to be able to absolutely put the Gold Coast away. However, there's someone who disagrees with me and making the biggest and most contentious call of the 2019 season, it is now time for a segment that we like to call the Touch of Death. If you're new to the channel and you don't know what the Touch of Death is, I'll give you a rundown like I do each and every week. It's where my good friend the Grim Reaper comes in. He's got his scythe ready. He swings it towards a team, marks a team for death, and obviously in doing so, will back the other team to get up and win. Hasn't picked a contender yet. He backed Carlton last week to get up over Melbourne, and it almost happened. It almost happened. However, this weekend, huge call. Off of the back of a 92-point smashing against Richmond last week at home, the Grim Reaper is coming out and he's backing the Gold Coast for the upset of the season and knock off Adelaide at Metricon Stadium. Huge call, absolutely huge call. I don't know what the Grim Reaper has been smoking this week. I actually like the ballsiness of this decision. Definitely not one I'm going to be making. I don't think many would be making this, but if it gets up, would be the tip of the year, without question. Let me know in the comment section down below if you know what the Grim Reaper's been smoking, because I think it's good stuff. Anyway, let's leave that match aside. Saturday rounds out at GMHBA Stadium with Geelong hosting St Kilda. It's quite simple. Geelong, despite losing last weekend to the Bulldogs, they're going to get back on the winners' table this week and quite comfortably put St Kilda away. St Kilda dropped off early against North Melbourne last week, and even though they were competitive to fight back, it's not going to be good enough this week against Geelong. A lot of people are backing St Kilda to upset Geelong here. I can see the possibility. Deep down, I can see the possibility. However, for me, this is where Geelong get their season back on track after losing last week. I think last week was just a speed bump on the way to the finals, and who knows what's going to happen from here. But for me, Geelong rounds out my tips for Saturday afternoon. Sunday kicks off at the MCG with Richmond taking on GWS. Richmond coming off of a 150-point outing last weekend, steamrolling the Gold Coast by 92 points. GWS falling short at the line last week against Brisbane in a game that I thought they would win. Yet again, proven wrong. Coming into this game, Jack Riewoldt is a huge chance to return, which will only further improve Richmond's on-field talent, which is now starting to see all the key players who went down with injuries early in the year starting to come back in and make a difference. On the flip side, GWS are heading into this game without elite midfielder Josh Kelly, and Stephen Coniglio has a 50-50 chance to play also. However, GWS fans, with that being said, All-Australian favourite Lachie Whitfield is set to make a return from a collarbone injury this weekend. With all that in mind, I'm locking in Richmond. A lot of you might think, Godzirra, you're crazy. However, hear me out. Josh Kelly absolutely rips Richmond to shreds. We all know, going off of the losses Richmond have had this year, the midfielders get absolutely off the chain because Richmond don't tag. If Josh Kelly doesn't play, Stephen Coniglio's a 50-50. If he doesn't get up and play, that's two damaging midfielders out of the GWS lineup that Richmond don't have to worry about. Stephen Coniglio, however, if he does play, he's in very good form. He could do a lot of damage. However, I feel the momentum coming off of the 92-point win last week should and will translate into this game. And if we knock off GWS by a sizable margin, I feel it's going to solidify Richmond as a serious contender heading into the finals, because there's a lot of people still saying, who have you beaten? You've only beaten teams that aren't in the top 8. They're correct, apart from the fact that Port Adelaide's in the top 8. But regardless, put that aside, Richmond is starting to get their season back on track. I said it 2 weeks ago. I continue to say it now. Richmond for me at the MCG Sunday afternoon. We then move on over to Marvel Stadium where the Dogs are hosting Melbourne. The Bulldogs proved last weekend against Geelong that they can play Marvel Stadium better than any other team in the competition, and I think they're going to continue to do so this weekend by putting the Demons back on the shelf, and they're going to keep their chances of a finals hope alive for 2019. I really feel with the teams that are currently out of the top 8, the teams that are going to be pushing will be the Bulldogs, Essendon, North Melbourne, and Adelaide. I think Adelaide's out the top 8. I could be wrong. But I think those are the 4 teams thereabouts that are going to be fighting for 7th and 8th spot. The Bulldogs are starting to play some really good football. They played really well against Geelong last week. There's no way you can back against them at Marvel. Definitely against a Melbourne team that struggled against Carlton for the most part last week. So the Bulldogs for me quite comfortably at Marvel on Sunday. And to round out round 17, we have Port Adelaide hosting Brisbane at Adelaide Oval. This is a game where Brisbane could do Brisbane things, travel down to Adelaide Oval and absolutely roll Port Adelaide. However, this weekend I think the momentum stops temporarily, and I'm going to back Port Adelaide to just fall over the line here in a close contest. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people are anticipating, but I'm backing Port Adelaide just to fall over the line. That rounds out my tips for this weekend. Having a look over those that I did go with, I've gone with West Coast, Sydney, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, Adelaide, Geelong, Richmond, Bulldogs, and Port Adelaide. Let me know in the comment section down below who are you tipping for this weekend. But that's going to bring this tipping video to a close. Thank you for joining me as always, as you have been. Be sure to leave a like on the video. It goes a long way to supporting myself, and I cannot thank you guys enough for all that support. If you're new to the channel and gameplays are your thing, there is plenty of gameplays going down. I urge you to go check them out. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, ladies and gentlemen, by the end of the year. Hopefully we can get there with your help. I think it's going to be more achievable. So if you want to share my videos around, spread the word of Arghgodzirra, whatever you please, it'd be hugely appreciated. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.